Mii Brawler has a lot of cheese, but the possibly cheesiest move in the entire game is Soaring X-Kick, or SAK for short. There are many ways to get kills at 0%, but it's not just braindead running off stage. Well, not always. Most of the tricks and methods are unknown even to Brawler mains, or have never really been dabbed, which is why I took up the task of compiling all knowledge and advanced tech there is regarding SAK skill potential, and putting it into a video. This part 1 will explain all setups except for one, which will get its own video due to its complexity and how busted it is. If you don't want to miss that, I recommend subscribing right now. At the very end, I will also provide a character cheat sheet that explains how and when certain setups work, which will be the most important part. Let's go! Strategy 1. Offstage Suicide SAK. This is the most obvious and braindead one, but there are some less known tricks. Against predictable recoveries with no escape options, you can obviously go for this whenever you feel it's worth it. There are certain recoveries, however, which will trade with SAK when spaced correctly. Some are more reliable, some less, some have a high risk of dying, some will always hit you. Luckily for us, Gimmick has already tested SAK's interaction with all characters' recoveries. I will link the document in the description. Strategy 2. Run-off Reverse SAK. This is the second method to intercept recoveries and is highly effective in certain matchups. By running off stage, dropping down just below ledge and be-reversing SAK towards stage, you can scoop opponents up during or even before their 2-frame. This is a very safe method to edgeguard and should always be attempted against linear recoveries like Pit, Joker, or even teleport recoveries like Palutena or Mewtwo. There's one more thing to note. Don't fall too far down before starting your up special. If you go too low, you might grab ledge before hitting the downwards kick. So if you feel like you ran off a little too early, you can stall in the air around the ledge using your double jump. It is possible to delay your ledge grab very slightly by holding down, which is risky but very effective for 2-framing. Strategy 3. Out of a combo. Here are the most important combo starters into Suicide SAK, starting from on stage. Neutral air, down tilt, forward air, back air, up air, down throw, and down air. Mix-ups can be SAK after a back throw or after a suplex. Especially suplex can be really strong, as you can react to whether you hit the rising part and then decide whether to drift off stage or stay on stage in case of it missing. Whether a move will combo into SAK also depends greatly on Rage and DI. Rage can have an effect by, for example, putting the opponent into tumble after a down tilt, and DI can be important after a down throw. Strategy 4. Shield break and neutral get up punishes. Even if the opponent is standing on stage, it is possible to drag them off stage and kill them without dying yourself. Let's take the easier case first, after a shield break. In that case, what you want to do is push the opponent as close to ledge as possible without pushing them off. After that, there are some things you need to know about their character. Number 1. Are they lighter than Rosalina? There are 16 characters in the game which are as heavy or lighter than Rosalina. On everyone except these characters, the normal method works. To understand the normal method, I need to explain an important fact about SAK first. SAK has a tendency to transfer some of your moving momentum to the opponent. At the same time, you don't want to be too close to them, or you might push them on stage again. In practice, your goal should be to get the first hit at about 3/4 of the move range, drift slightly off stage by holding away from the opponent, and then only drift back to stage far enough so you don't die yourself. In case of the normal method, that looks like this. If you do it correctly, the opponent will always die no matter their DI. On everyone with the same or less weight than Rosalina, you need to use a variation. And for that, I need to explain one more overlooked property SAK has. SAK's rising hit doesn't exactly have fixed knockback by definition. Percent and rage don't make a difference, but instead, the knockback works in a way that it puts the opponent in a place where the spike is 100% guaranteed to hit. In other words, opponents below you will receive stronger knockback and fly higher up, while opponents above you will receive very little knockback so they don't fly too high for the second hit to connect. This is important because these 16 characters are so light that the rising hit of SAK will have enough knockback to put them into tumble when performed on the same height as them. And once they get put into tumble, they can DI away to avoid getting dragged off stage. But there's a solution, and that is to simply start SAK from below stage. From just the right height, you can reduce the knockback enough so they don't get sent into tumble and still drift far enough back to drag them off stage. So with the normal method and the variation combined, every character can be dragged off stage at any percent, but only if they are right at ledge. Against a few characters, it is possible to punish a neutral get up on a read, but it's way more precise and less consistent. If I figure out a consistent method to get guaranteed stocks that way, I'll make an update video. There's one more thing to think about when going for the setup. Does the opponent even die from doing this? When testing each character, I got a lot of odd results, which didn't really match up. In the end, I did figure out how exactly the knockback value is determined and which character dies on which stage, and I want to show you how I got to these conclusions. But if you aren't interested in that part, you can skip to this time to only see the results. But if you're still here, then I start by explaining how SAK Spike really works. All of SAK's spike hitboxes have fixed knockback with set weight. As the name suggests, this means every character will be treated the same, regardless of weight and percent. But because we are talking about a spike, that is not the only factor. The other important value is fall speed. Faster falling characters will get launched at higher speed, meaning they will travel a longer distance downwards before being able to act again. At the same time, Ultimate has a mechanic where opponents die to a second higher blast zone when traveling through it at a certain speed. As a result, everyone with a higher fall speed than me Gunner will die before Brawler when spiked from the ground of Final Destination. Everyone with lower fall speed, starting with Steve, can live, if they manage to recover. You remember how I said SAK Spike had fixed knockback? Well, that's correct, but SAK also has 3 different hitboxes which partially overlap and partially don't. And for some reason, all of these hitboxes have slightly different launch angles and knockback values. And that can make quite the difference against characters which wouldn't die otherwise. Let's take Samus as an example. When spiking Samus from the ground of FD, by hitting her at this point, Samus won't be able to recover. But you as Brawler definitely die first, so on last stock, doing this would be unthinkable. But if you now do it from the same height of stage and space it in a way that you hit with the very tip of Brawler's foot, Samus will always die before you. Every single time. Unfortunately, it isn't really possible to get the foot hitbox when starting on stage. So the upcoming chart will always assume that you start from on stage and do not hit that extra strong foot hitbox. If you have the option to space your move though, for example after a combo out of forward air, always try to hit with the very tip of SAK. The last thing to consider is the stage you're currently on. Some stages like Battlefield have very low blast zones, meaning the opponent might get a chance to recover, compared to stages like PS2. I've included data for each tournament viable stage in the final chart, so don't worry about that. So there you have it. This is the final chart for all characters on all stages, sorted by fall speed. If a character is to the left of a certain stage section, they are guaranteed to die on that stage, and will almost always die before and sometimes on the same frame as you. Within a certain stage section, characters marked green are able to recover as long as you don't stop them, while characters marked red will not be able to make it back on their own. Keep in mind that this chart is for when you are not able to space yourself in a way that you would hit the strongest of SAK's spike hitboxes, starting from the ground of the stage. If you hit the stronger hitbox at the tip of SAK, a lot more characters would die before you, while if you hit them from higher up, for example after a falling up air, they might not die at all. Consider all of these before going for a suicide kill. And that's almost everything about SAK spikes. Part 2 on new advanced techniques will come out soon, so make sure to subscribe. Labbing this for every single character and stage took me many hours, so if you could like the video, I would really appreciate that. Until the next video.